Hi everyone, this is Anna Finch from Finch Press Publishing. Now, today's video is a book review of The Surface Breaks by Louise O'Neill, which is presented as a feminist retelling of The Little Mermaid. Now, I need to give you a warning. This video may contain topics that you may find harmful. In this book, there are instances of violence against women. There are instances of abuse, so domestic violence. There are instances of rape. So if these things may bother you, okay, now if these instances may bother you, I will put a timestamp in the description to tell you which bits you may need to skip. Now, if you're wondering about the title Yeah Nah or Nah Yeah, it's basically Aussie slang. Yeah Nah means no, Nah Yeah means yes. So at the end of the video, I'll tell you if I recommend this book or if I don't. So The Surface Breaks is a story about a little mermaid named Gaia who desires to find out what happens to her mother and wants to go to the surface. She meets a human called Oliver that she falls in love with instantly and goes to the sea witch and asks for a pair of legs. She gets them, she becomes human. It's presented as a feminist retelling. Now, if you've watched, I will be talking a lot about the problems with the way it's presented in the other series of videos, which I go over the problems with The Surface Breaks. Now, this review, I'm going to mainly focus on, I'm going to try and condense everything I talked about in the other videos into a shorter one. Now, I'm going to split this into a couple of categories. This first part's to do with the story and as a piece of literature. The second part is to do with as a text for the curriculum. So, part one, to do with the literature itself for enjoyment. Now, I'll be considering things like character, plot, themes. So, characters. Now, one character is Cedar, the sea witch. I don't even know if I'm saying her name right, but the sea witch is the most compelling character. She's the strongest character and she's hardly in the book. And she's the most interesting of the characters. Her characterization as a strong, independent woman who's not ashamed of who she is a good representation of a strong female voice. Gaia, on the other hand, the main character, now she hardly changes throughout the story. There's very little character development. The way she ends up, the way she changes is very little. I mean, she does have some growth, but the growth doesn't have a big impact on the story as it progresses. The characterization of the male characters is horrendous. All the male characters are presented as evil, arrogant men who only desire the bodies of women. Literally, that's how they're presented. Every single male character is exactly the same as the next. The only way you can tell the difference between the Sea King and Zale, which is the man the guy is being forced to marry, is by their name. Seriously, that's the only way you can tell them apart. And Oliver, you can only really tell him apart because he's actually referred to as a human. He's only slightly different from the other male characters, but he's still an arsehole. Change. He can tell the guy's into him and wants him, and sleeps with someone else. He is one-dimensional. He does not change. Yes, he has issues and things in his past and stuff. Like, that's supposed to make me more sympathetic to him. Doesn't work. I still think he's an asshole. And honestly, I was waiting the entire time for Gaia to basically kick his ass and like say, no, I deserve better. She never does. Characters, not the best. They're not the most developed and they're very one-dimensional. The plot of the story is the overarching plot is identical to the original Little Mermaid. Slight different deviations based on the background and like what happens to her mother and some of the desires and stuff that aren't included in the original. Wise, it doesn't fix a lot of the issues that are present in the original one. It just creates more. The only good thing it does with it is it does present these issues of sexual assault and trauma and abuse and how it affects the mental psyche of a person. And same things like with body image and things like that. It presents those things realistic, but the characters don't do anything with those problems. They don't challenge it, they don't fix it, they don't question it. They go along with it. Like, it's not until the end until Gaia speaks up for herself, and even then she doesn't have a tongue. She's using magic to get the point across. And there's no hints in the book that the mermaids themselves are capable of magic, besides the sea witch. So that came out of nowhere. Then, like, even if you're keeping the overarching plot the same as the original text, okay, change, like, the ending's fine. It fits with the original story. The beginning's good. I mean, there are issues in there that made me want to puke, but it presents it realistically. Plot-wise, the plot's meh. It's okay. It's not wow. I mean, I read it in like 2 hours, but I'm a fast reader, and even though I didn't really like, I wasn't like super into the book, it didn't make me want to gorge my eyes out either. So it was meh story. It's like, okay. Themes. Now, there are a lot of themes that are in this book that are serious issues that are present in today's society, and good on her for presenting those issues. However, she's tried to cram in too many of those issues within a short span of time, within one book, and doesn't address any of them fully. So she has things like the way people perceive beauty, okay? She has things that can be connected to body image. She has issues to do with rape culture, victim blaming. She has issues to do with sexuality. One of the guy's sisters, Nia, is identified as a lesbian. I thought and she's identified as a lesbian, and they present the idea of lesbian as unnatural in this book. When this one scene with Nia, like begging her grandmother to like get her father to change her mind to do with the arranged marriage for Marlon, I thought that there was sexual assault, and that's why she didn't want to marry the guy. And besides the fact she loses freedom, but she's a lesbian. Good on her. So she presents the idea of sexuality as something that was perceived to be unnatural, and that was the view that was in this particular time period. I mean, the time period is not very clear, but I'm assuming it's like Industrial Revolution, post-Industrial Revolution. I mean, you got a woman as a CEO, so it's like post-Industrial Revolution, so modern day, which makes the way the men are presented not quite accurate for the context. If it was obvious that it was in like the 1800s, yeah, I could believe the way the men were presented. But it's like she's mixed multiple different time periods in the one and not stuck with one. It's setting not right. And you got issues of things like You also got issues of forced marriage, child marriage, abuse, rape. You've got eating disorders. Now, any one of these themes on their own and presented in a text and presented in a way that the characters challenge it can be very strong, because teens have struggles to do with body image and how they perceive themselves. They have issues to do with eating disorders. Eating disorders are a serious problem for some teens. Things like beauty, issues of beauty. There's a serious issue. Had this book focused on those themes only, or on the themes of abuse or the trauma related from abuse and rape and sexual assault, if they'd focused on one particular theme that's connected to smaller themes and focused on that one main theme and threaded it throughout the text, it would have been better. Rather than having a whole bunch of the themes, like, oh yeah, child marriage happens in this book. Oh, the person sexually assaulted. Like, it's all over the place. The themes are all over the place. But they're still fairly strong themes. Another problem is the market. It's marketed towards young teens. It's marketed towards teenagers. So these are kids who are 12 plus. And I bought this from the kids section of a bookstore. Issues are not issues that people would want kids reading about. These are serious problems, and you're going to have issues like sexual assault in a text for teens. Can't be explicit, because these are books that may go in a library. Even if you included it, there needs to be warnings on the back of the book. Now, she could continue, there's no problem with her adding all these issues if she had focused on one issue and focused on how it impacted people more than 10 different issues at the same time. It would have been better. But there's no problem with her addressing these issues. Good on her for doing it. But especially with things to do with abuse and rape and suicide. Now, the suicide bit is at the end, they present suicide in this as a show of strength. I mean, that's the same in the original fairy tale. But again, many people do not associate the original fairy tale when they think of The Little Mermaid. When they think of The Little Mermaid, they think of the Disney version, not the original Hans Christian Andersen version. So, if you're going to include themes like suicide, rape, abuse, you need to put warning labels on this in the description or on the back of the blurb, somewhere saying contains these issues and it may distress some people. So, a person who has experienced sexual assault and is still heavily traumatized by it doesn't pick it up and starts reading it and get a whole chapter where this character is actually sexually assaulted. Need to put the warnings needs to be on the book. So, story-wise, the book is okay. It's decent. The story is okay. The characters, the plot, the themes are okay, and they're presented in an alright way. The themes, personally, she had focused on one theme and made it the core of the story and threaded it throughout, and there was main challenges, even if you were referring to other ones, would have been better. But I get that she wanted to try and confront these issues and present these issues and try and present to people something that needs to be fixed. and these issues do need to be fixed. There's a lot of work to be done in these areas. So for me, the themes are probably the strongest part of her text. The characters are okay. They're not the most compelling. The storyline itself is not the most compelling. It's an okay book. It's a decent book. Would I read it again? Maybe. I may read it if I'm bored. Or if I wanted to use some of this in an English classroom. But to rate it out of 10, like, I'll give it a rating out of 5 because on Goodreads they do out of 5. Out of 5, I'd probably give it 2.5 stars. It's okay. It's average. It's decent. So, for me, it's a meh. If you're looking for a feminist text, this isn't for you. If you just want to read something like The Little Mermaid, yeah, it's alright. Would I recommend it? If they were going to write a criticism of it, or they're writing a critical essay on issues to do with what's in the text, yeah. But for me, as a literary text for enjoyment, it's a no. I wouldn't recommend it. I'm saying, nah, yeah, no, it's not good. It's not the best. It's okay. Now, as something for the curriculum, that's a different story. Now, the language is accessible, so it's easy to read. I mean, there are some words in there that need to be broken down, but in a classroom, but it's all right. Language-wise, it's accessible for year 8 and up, but I do not recommend people who are younger than 15 to read this. Curriculum-wise, you could use this in the curriculum for year 10 English, year 10 and up English. I mean, technically you could do it in younger year levels, but I wouldn't recommend it. The issues in this are serious, and it's too mature for year 7s, people who are 12 years old, because it can be confronting. It can be used for analysing things like text structures and features. You can analyse literature and context. So if you look at time period and look at the context, this is for year 7 to 10 and year 10, 9 to 10, and look at things like viewpoints and doing things like discussions about key issues. So you can use parts of this for things to do with persuasive writing, to analysing argument or the persuasive speech. And they could do a discussion connected to this in the classroom, and get them to discuss ideas and things and problems. So as a tool for discussion, it can be it's really good for a tool for discussion. It could be used for VCE English. So this is Victorian Senior Year English. So it can be used for analysing text, so reading and creating text. So you discuss, evaluate a text, compare it, break it down. You can definitely use it for literature, the subject literature, because there is a unit about exploring connections between texts. There's also a section or a unit focusing on form and transformation, so adaptations. So you can study this as an adaptation of The Little Mermaid, compare it with an original text. And it can be pretty good to do that and break it down that way. You can do things about literary perspectives. So you can read texts like about feminism and compare it and break it down and critically analyse it. And it can be good for that. So curriculum-wise, for the Surface Breaks. Would recommend it for year 11s or year 12s who are doing VCE. I wouldn't recommend it for anyone younger because the issues are quite confronting. This is about the same. This is similar in regards to the issues to The Handmaid's Tale. So I would recommend it for year 11 and up. So these are kids who are 16, 17, or even 18. Because you can analyse it and critically analyse, and it can be a good tool for critically analysing, particularly when it comes to the understanding of feminism. So, yeah, for me, it's okay. So I'd probably give this as a text for the curriculum for English, about 4 out of 5. It loses a point for it because there's not a lot of resources. It's a brand new text, so there's practically no resources for it. But you can still analyse it. That's all from me. I hope you liked it. If you did, press the like button down below. If you want to be notified of when I upload videos, hit the subscribe button. See you next time.